Good morning, everybody. I thought I would record this to show you what to do today for the assignment. Okay, so today you're going to have this daily check-in for Friday, August 21. Okay, and then after you fill out and turn in the check-in, okay, you're going to have this that says Black Lives Matter. What do you already know? So I'm going to explain what to do on this one because this assignment has a few parts. Okay, all right, so let's go to the assignment. So this is a lesson that I worked on and collaborated with some teachers in New York. Okay, but I thought it would be important to start the year with a current issue in our country. This is a U.S. history class, but I am going to start it with something from the present to kind of connect things that happened in the past. Okay, so here's what I would like to know, basically. I would like to know what you already know about this summer's Black Lives Matter protests. Okay. The goal here is to kind of see what you guys already have in your brain about this. That's my objective, right? And this lesson's got several parts. So I'm going to start with the intro, and then I'm going to move down as I go, okay? So the intro is pretty simple. It's an activity called recall. And all you have to do is you have to look at this picture here for a second, kind of see things that stand out to you, notice things, look at anything that catches your eye. Okay, look at it for a few moments, and then when you're ready, you're going to scroll down, and then you're going to answer the prompts without referring to this picture again. Okay, so that's why it's called recall, because you have to kind of think back at what you saw. So we kind of look at the photograph for a moment, and once it's kind of stayed in our brain, then we kind of go back to the prompts. And it says to take a few seconds to respond to these, but remember, you have to recall. You can't look back at the picture. Okay, so this says list all the things you can recall from the image. So here in the gray box, you would type in anything you remember from the image. It's okay if you don't have complete sentences here. This is just kind of a recall exercise. And then the second prompt says what stood out to me the most from the image was, in other words, the most important parts of the image are, okay? So that's the introduction. All right, so as we scroll down here to page 3, you're going to get introduced here to the big idea, okay? And the big idea is this. When we study history or when we study current events, context can include what we already know about the topic or event. Okay? And so here in this next part of the assignment, we're going to study context, history, and current events. But if we don't know what they are, I'm going to introduce the key terms here, and I'm going to have a simple exercise for you to do. So I have the definitions and examples below, and then I have you completing the prompts. Okay? So here's the term history, current event, and context. And here's what the term means. And then here's some examples. Right? So let's do the first one together. It says a story of the past constructed from evidence found in sources. That's what history means. And this means noun. History is a noun. Okay. So for example, Jerome wanted to learn more about the history of podcasting. So he read a few articles online and part of a book to learn more. So I give you some examples here. And then I say above are many examples of history. If you were going to teach a history class, it would be called the history of, and then that's where you answer. Okay. So you would do the same thing for current events, and then you would do the same thing for context. All right. So as we go on, I have a section called Activating Prior Knowledge where I want you to practice. So you're going to be filling in these 3 gray boxes. I have a short introduction here about what activating prior knowledge means. And then I have the actual directions here. And it's simple. All you have to do is fill out this chart to the best of your ability with ideas that you already know about the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. So the ones that just happened in July and are still happening right now in August. Where did you learn about these protests? Like if you have a specific place, like maybe you read about them on Twitter, maybe you saw news on, I don't know, Snapchat, or maybe you saw the news with your parents. That's what you would write right here. If you have any links or any kind of article you read, you can put it right there and I will be glad to look at that. And then finally, any questions you have about the protests. So any kind of doubts that you have in your head, like why are they happening? Who's involved? Those kinds of things. So we move on to the final part. The final part is the reflection. Okay. So here I have a quote, and it's from a man named Clint Smith from a website named tolerance.org. This website is kind of a, how could I say it, an organization that helps people understand history through current events. Okay. And Clint Smith says a lot here in this quote that I'm going to read to you because I want to kind of leave it clear what he means, okay? Beyond providing the language for a young person to name the world around them, engaging with the histories we too often fail to name helps us better understand the contemporary landscape of inequality. One cannot begin to understand what happened to Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014 without understanding the decades-long history of state-sanctioned housing segregation that created the conditions of the community in which he lived. One cannot begin to understand what happened at the white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017 without taking into account the ways in which the sons and daughters of the Confederacy warped the narrative of the Civil War into an historical caricature of itself. One cannot begin to understand what happened to the 9 victims of the Charleston Church Massacre in 2015 without making sense of how, 200 years ago, South Carolina was one of the single most important slave ports in the United States. So in the reflection question, I ask you, what does this quote from the excerpt above suggest to you about how important understanding history and context is for unpacking current events? And so I give you a part of the quote right here, and that's the one that you're going to reflect on. This question, in a sense, is asking you, what does Clint Smith think about history? What does he think it's useful for? Why does he think you need context when you're looking at current events? Why does he think you need to understand all these things about the past when you're only looking at a problem in the present? That's kind of what this prompt is asking you to reflect on. Okay, so you would write your answer here, and please use complete sentences for this one. And that's it. That's what you're going to be doing today. If you have any questions, I'm still hanging around the Google Classroom, so feel free to come and ask me if you have an issue or if you have a question. All right. Have a great weekend. I will see you on Monday at the designated time.